Since the Pokemon games released, a Pokemon's type has always been important. The first choice you make as a new trainer is what type of starter you want. Over the generations, Game Freak has added 3 new types to Pokemon: Dark, Steel, and Fairy. All 3 have drastically changed which Pokemon are on top. But it's been 12 years since we've seen a new type, so I thought I would try it myself. What would the Pokemon world look like if there was a sound type? The first task when making a new type is to determine how it interacts with the other types. I'm going to start with sound's offensive matchups. Water and air are the main conductors of sound, so sound does super effective damage to both water and flying types. Sound also hits psychic types for super effective damage. Have you ever tried to concentrate with someone making an annoying noise? It's impossible to focus. The last type sound deals extra damage to is the fairy type. Part of this is balance reasons, as fairy is very strong and only has 2 weaknesses at the moment. But fairy types are meant to be graceful and majestic, and it's hard to be majestic when these guys are blaring rock music in your face. Moving on to the types that sound isn't quite as effective against. Sound is not very effective against steel, as sound is reflected by steel and most other metals. I think fighting types also resist sound. Fighting type Pokemon are known as the athletes of the Pokemon world, and athletes are known for drowning out the crowd noise to focus. The last type that would resist sound would be the ice type. Cold air is naturally dry, which can irritate vocal cords, and many singers prefer room temperature water to cold water, as they believe it can strain their voice. It's also a much needed buff to ice types, which have one of the worst type matchups defensively. Now on to the defensive matchups for the sound type. I think the only 2 weaknesses sound types have are electric, because light is faster than sound, and ice for the same reasons as before. Sound's resistances would be water, flying, and ground. The most important part of making a new type is identifying the Pokemon that deserve it. I think most sound type Pokemon fall into one of 2 categories. Either they are hyper offensive, using high power sound moves to one-shot opposing Pokemon, or they are supportive Pokemon that buff your own Pokemon and debuff your opponents. Starting with the Kanto region, the most obvious pick for being a sound type is Jigglypuff and its evolutions. I mean, it's famous for singing lullabies that put people and Pokemon to sleep. Jigglypuff is also one of the most popular Pokemon, so I think they would be the perfect mascot for sound types. Lapras is known as the transport Pokemon, and for singing a beautiful song as it swims. Also being the OG Perish song user, I think Lapras should lose its ice typing and gain the sound type. The last Gen 1 Pokemon to get the sound type is Cubone. You might think, why Cubone? Well, firstly, have you ever seen a skeleton xylophone? Bones can be very musical. Also, almost every Pokédex entry for Cubone says it has a loud and sad cry when it thinks of its mother. I think adding the sound type to the Cubone line gives a little more character to a pretty bland Pokemon. In Generation 2, the theme is bringing some spice to a couple of boring or weak Pokemon. Hoot Hoot and Noctowl become sound and flying types. Birds are the most musical animals in the world, and owls arguably have the most iconic call of all the birds. The other 2 Johto Pokemon gaining the sound type are Sunflora and the Misdreavus line. Both are monotype Pokemon without a role in the games, so giving them the tools to become Sportmons would give them a chance to shine. The Hoenn region is filled with sound type Pokemon. Firstly, the Trico line is the only one of the 3 starters in Hoenn that doesn't have a secondary typing, so I'm gonna give them the sound type. I could totally see these guys using a blade of grass as a whistle. Ludicolo is a Pokemon that I relate to music very closely, but it turns out that Ludicolo gets stronger when hearing festive music, not really when making it. I do think Lotad and its evolutions could get the buffed ability Soundproof, giving full immunity to sound type moves, and now getting a boost to both attack and special attack when hit by one. So now Ludicolo truly does get stronger when it hears the music. Whismur and its evolution's whole gimmick is being loud, so of course these purple monsters are sound types. Another Pokemon I wasn't sure on making a sound type is Ninjask. It's based on a cicada, and you know if you've heard them, they are some of the noisiest and most annoying creatures on the planet. But Ninjask has to keep its bug typing, so it loses the flying type for sound. Whale calls are the loudest animal call in the world and can be heard from thousands of miles away. so giving Wailmer and Wailord sound typing allows them to be more than just a 47-foot long water spout. Swablu goes from normal flying to sound flying, as there is not much normal about a bird with clouds for wings. And finally, Chimecho is literally a wind chime, so of course it and its pre-evolution Chingling are sound type. As we head into the Sinnoh region, we are greeted by the melodies of Kricketot and Kricketune, who are a perfect fit to be sound types. They are based on crickets, who are of course a noisy insect, but these Pokemon are also conductors, making melodies on the fly based on the emotions they are feeling. Another obvious choice from Sinnoh is the music note Pokemon Chatot. I mean, just look at it. Do I need to say any more? It even knows all of the sound moves already, so of course it will become sound and flying. One Pokemon I would have loved to make sound type is Bronzong. The Pokemon is just a giant bronze bell, but I think its typing now being Steel and Psychic just makes too much sense to change. The final Pokemon from Generation 4 to gain the sound type is one that already can have many different types. It's Rotom. Rotom's ability to take over electronics makes it perfect to become the electric and sound type Rotom Jukebox. In Pokemon's 5th generation, Unova, I think Minccino and its evolution Cinccino should become normal and sound types. Besides being known for being a clean freak, Cinccino doesn't really have anything special going on. Plus it already knows several sound-based moves, so the sound type seems like it would be a welcome addition to these chinchillas. Another fun Pokemon to get the sound type is Cubchoo. Cubchoo is constantly sniffling and sneezing, and its evolution Beartic is able to use its roar to make icy breath. Lots of fans have been calling for these mono ice type bears to get a secondary typing for a while, so it seems like it's time to add the sound type. I think Tornadus deserves some love. It is the only one of the 4 forces of nature that doesn't have a second type. Tornadoes are incredibly loud. They can be up to 150 decibels, which is as loud or louder than a jet engine. Tornadus is a strong Pokemon, but adding a secondary sound typing puts it on the same level as its genie friends. The most fitting sound type in Unova is the mythical Pokemon Meloetta. It has 2 forms, with one being named after music, and has a signature move called Relic Song. Changing Meloetta's Aria form from normal Psychic to Sound Psychic, and its Pirouette form from normal fighting to sound fighting is a perfect change for the Melody Pokemon. The Kalos region has a few good picks for the sound type. Pyroar is obviously based on a lion, who have the loudest roar of all the big cats, and their roars can be heard from up to 5 miles away. The Pyroar line is also the only Pokemon to learn the move Noble Roar until Generation 7. Turning this cat from a normal and fire type to sound and fire just makes sense. Noibat and its evolution Noivern are perfect for being sound types. Bats are known for using echolocation for navigation and hunting. Noivern's Pokedex entry in Pokemon Y says it can reduce a boulder to pebbles with its ultrasonic waves. Making Noivern a dragon and sound type also differentiates it from all the other dragon and flying types. And since I didn't give the original Bat Pokemon the sound type, I have to give it to these guys. The last Generation 6 Pokemon to become sound type is Clauncher and Clawitzer. You might think there's no reason for a shrimp Pokemon to be a sound type, but Clauncher and its evolution are based on Pistol Shrimp. Pistol Shrimp are known for having asymmetrical claws, with one being much larger than the other. This large claw can snap, producing a sound up to 189 decibels, which is loud enough to stun its prey. This is the second loudest sound an animal can produce, so I do think it belongs in the group. The Alola region is pretty sparse on sound type candidates, but there are a couple good fits. I considered changing one of the starters typings. Primarina is a water and fairy type that has a musical theme. I think instead of changing Primarina's type, I would just make its ability Liquid Voice, change all sound moves to water moves. Then it can still benefit from sound moves without losing one of its types. Jangmo-O and all of its evolutions use their metal scales to make sounds and express their emotion. The final evolution Como-O has 2 signature moves that are both sound-based. So I think sound should be added to all 3 Pokemon, and Como-O loses its fighting type. The 8th generation takes place in the Galar region, which is based off of England. England is known for being the birthplace of pop music, so of course there will be some sound-based Pokemon here. Starting with one of the starters, Grookey loves to hit things with its stick. looking for different rhythms to play. As this chimp evolves into its final form Rillaboom, it even gets its own drum set, and with the signature move Drum Beating, these three Pokemon absolutely deserve the sound typing. Obstagoon is moving from normal and dark to sound and dark. An Obstagoon is the lead singer of the Pokemon band The Maximizers, so it must have a great voice. And speaking of Obstagoon, I think Pierce's Gym and Spikemuth should change from dark to sound type. He is the leader of Team Yell after all, and he can keep his ace Pokemon Obstagoon on the team. Toxtricity is a very sound-based Pokemon, but I'm not sure it should become a sound type. Keeping its type combo of electric and poison allows it to be unique and still deal extra damage with sound moves from its ability Punk Rock. The last Galar Pokemon to become sound types are Cufant and Copperajah. Elephants are famous for making a trumpeting sound when excited. They can also make low frequency sounds that humans can't hear but can be heard by other elephants up to 10 miles away. In the Paldea region, Squawkabilly are plentiful and loud, making them the best fit for being sound types. They prefer to live in cities, so they don't mind the noise, and they are known for being very noisy themselves when searching for food and when fighting over territory. The Revavroom line are basically engines on wheels that are known for polluting its environment with both toxic fluids and noise. Turning Varoom and its evolution from steel and poison to sound and poison seems fair. You could also just give them the ability Punk Rock to let them keep their typing while still getting a bonus to sound moves. Moving on to a Paradox Pokemon, Screamtail obviously is going to be a sound type. If being the past Paradox form of Jigglypuff wasn't enough of a reason, it literally has the word Scream in its name. Screamtail loses its Psychic typing and becomes Fairy and Sound. If you enjoyed the video so far, you don't have to scream like this guy. Just leave a like and consider subscribing if you want to see more Pokemon content. After all of these changes, 50 different Pokemon have become sound types, with about 15 more getting some sort of boost to sound moves. But how does this really affect the Pokemon world? I think it would have a huge impact on the competitive scene. Fluttermane is a Pokemon that, since it was introduced, has been by far the most used Pokemon by trainers. Sound types dealing super effective damage to Fairy types allows room for someone else to take that top spot. It also allows any Pokemon with the ability Soundproof to gain an immunity it previously didn't have. Sound types being weak to Ice types also give those chilly Pokemon a much needed buff to both offense and defense. I'm not sure if Pokemon is ever going to add a new type, but I would love to see one in Generation 10. That's gonna do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.